dicks for real this time.
I've thought about them in my mouth. I mean, I don't know. It could happen. What about the background?
I'll change it later.
Okay, that's cool.
Oh God, it's directed by... What? Okay, I have to say this. I was going to start this podcast by making a joke about the 1998 movie The Avengers, just because it's a movie. But I just noticed that, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie is credited as being directed by Jeremiah Chechnik and Jeremiah S. Chechnik. Chechik, whatever.
He credited himself twice.
Is it two people? Like, is there two people
with the same fucking name?
Click on it.
Benny and June. Okay.
Anyway, we're talking about Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, he's credited twice.
I was really hoping that Jeremiah Chechik and Jeremiah S. Chechik were two different people that just happened to work on one movie together.
That's why the movie's so terrible, because
yeah.
they're just like, the only reason they made it. Because they're just like, we have the same name. Let's make a movie to fuck with people.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah, so... Avengers 2
starts out with the worst scene in fucking all movie history. It's just gross and disgusting. It just makes you want to vomit.
It's pretty awful. We should have this... We should have a whole predecessor section to this discussion where we talk about the context that we're talking about Avengers Age of Ultron, because I think our context is probably more unique than most people going into seeing Avengers Age of Ultron, especially if you're the type of person who, after the end credits scene of this movie, or the post-credits little mid-tag thing that they have, if you're the guy, like, in our theater who screams,
"Fuck
oh shit,"
or like, "Oh shit,"
at the end. So anyway, Kevin Feige. Let's talk about Kevin Feige, who is the producer behind all of this. He's the one who started all this madness. He's the one who said to Jon Favreau when he was making Iron Man, let's put that scene at the end where... Think about it. Think about how crazy it is.
He's Suge Knight. He's the Suge Knight of the movie industry.
Explain this opinion to the people.
Okay.
And give them some...
So, Suge Knight is, I think, Death Row Records, West Coast rap record company. He owns it, and, like, did, like, Tupac and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and all those people. Suge Knight has no artistic talent. None at all. He's just a guy that got a bunch of people with baseball bats together and extorted all those contracts, and he just, like, is just revered, and everyone, like, bows down to him, but he has no talent. That's what Kevin Feige is. He has no talent, no artistic at all. He's just this producer guy who has all this power and
an argument could be made,
movies.
And has been made by people, that Kevin Feige is not only a smart businessman, but that he is the architect of this entire universe. And I always hear people talking about that in terms of it being, like, a positive. Like, that Kevin Feige has crafted all of this, and because of this, he is a genius.
He's just terrible.
First of all, if you're just a person who's going to see the Avengers movies, and you like them, and it's cool and fun and superheroes, go look up Kevin Feige, and don't look up anything about him. Just look at his face, and instantly you'll understand why he's bad. You don't even need to know anything about any of this.
I want him to kill someone. I want Kevin Feige to be involved in, like, a shooting.
Hopefully, at that point, if that happens, he will then die shortly
afterwards. What if Kevin Feige just gets, like, imprisoned, and he's just, like, tortured in prison?
Here's my fantasy. Life. Kevin Feige shows up to a prison, and there's a prison guard standing outside, and he's like, "Kevin, we've been waiting for you." And they drag Kevin Feige by his earlobes into a yard, like a prison yard, and there's just a line of prisoners, and they all just beat the shit out of him, like, personally, one by one, and they all have their time to insult him and, like...
Literally the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Feige shits in people's mouths.
Us two, me and Cole, the people talking to you right now, we not only didn't care for, but actively, strongly disliked both Captain America 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy, which are two movies that everyone loves. However, our theory is that what happened in that situation was Kevin Feige literally was shitting
in everyone's mouth.
And
he was telling them, you're gonna fucking eat it, and you're gonna like it. And that's what people did. That's why Kevin Feige has power. He's able to shit in your mouth. He's able to put shit in your fucking mouth, and you eat it up. You fucking cunts.
You eat it up, and it's just so tasty.
And it's just so tasty, you just love his fucking shit.
You taste all of the little, like, perfections, all of, like, the little imperfections, I should say, about the shit that you're eating. And
see, Avengers 2 just has flecks of his shit in it.
Right.
It's not completely shit. It just...
Right.
It's kind of stained by it. It's kind of like... It's like a dog you really like, but he's kind of homeless and he has shit all over him. But you're kind of like,
you want to care for him.
You want to care for him and you love him.
But at the same time, you're like, this dog has a lot of shit.
You're kind of like, but you're kind of gross, dog. You have shit on you. I wish I could clean you, but I can't. You can't clean it off.
Watching Marvel movies is like watching a dog with shit all over him walk around. That's only the case, though, when the movies are pretty good.
Yeah, that's
because Avengers Age of Ultron is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
as someone who really dislikes what this Marvel universe has become, what it has done to cinema and, like, trends in big cinema, I think this movie was pretty good. And because of that, it is like watching a cute dog with shit all over it.
Yeah.
Not all over it.
Because this...
Just parts.
It's just... It is a good movie. It has some of the best scenes in the Marvel universe. Ultron is my favorite supervillain ever. I fucking love the shit out of Ultron.
Yes.
He's funny. He's intense. He's just a great villain. But the movie, I feel like the main events, the main plot line is good. Joss Whedon makes it good. It's just kind of the surrounding kind of flex of Kevin Feige and just forced...
flex.
Like, the forced influence that he's just like, oh, we need to put this in. You're going to put this in because we just need this.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a lot to take.
I think what we should do is, and for everyone listening to this, we're just going to talk about the movie in general and our general opinions about it for just a bit, and then we'll get really into, like, spoiler stuff that you won't want to hear about until you've actually seen the movie, and then come back and listen to it. I would say, generally, like, my overall impression of the movie, kind of in the vein of what we've been talking about, is that this is a movie that, at its core, and, like, as a general film put together... you know, with the story and everything all together, is this big, crazy mess. But amid all of that, there's a through line through all of it. And I feel like Joss Whedon, as much as even in interviews he's talking about being frustrated by all of this and by the serialization of movies, it still manages to have a structure that's interesting and smart. And characters are written into this movie and developed in ways that enhance the characters and make you like them more than I at least I have in the recent movies.
Yeah. I think the reason why Joss Whedon is so frustrated and just he's so sick of it is because he worked very hard to make this movie still good. I think he had to put an insane amount of effort to make this movie still good, and it kind of burned him out. He's tired. Joss Whedon I see as a guy, like, he likes making movies. He has fun doing it. He makes his movies fun. He does his exuberance and fun about him. That's what I get about Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell from this movie, because it has Joss Whedon in it, but you can also tell it's not just it has some in it that's not necessarily just the fun of Joss Whedon. Like,
it's certainly not unfiltered artistic inspiration. A lot of what you have here is moments that are really clever and cool and interesting, and they're followed up by things that feel like they were desperately forced into.
Yeah. The thing about the Kevin Feige effect on these movies is just, you can tell that there's a corporate, like, there's just a bunch of suits that are like, okay, we're gonna put this in because people like this. People show that they like this. It's not an artist creating his own vision necessarily.
And, you know, people talk about Kevin Feige. You could say that Kevin Feige's a geeky guy and he's like introducing all these little characters, but it's like the way that it goes, the way that comes about feels very corporate, and it feels very planned and specific.
It's not like, oh, it'd be cool, let's throw this guy in because it'd be cool. It's like, we need to throw this guy in because people are going to eat it up.
Yeah. It comes more so from a place of appeasing people or just doing
giving
things.
Them what they want.
Yeah. Which
I mean,
like, that sounds, I guess it sounds shitty for us to be like, you shouldn't give people what they want, but it takes away it. Like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe to me takes away from what like a movie experience is to me in a lot of ways, because I feel like a lot of it is just so collaborative and manufactured to the point that these stories, for the most part, and these characters, they don't ring true as much as they once did.
Yeah.
They feel like puppets, ironically. Like how Ultron in this movie talks about being a puppet on strings. All of these characters...
Ultron... now I'm thinking about this, I think Ultron represents, like I was talking about, I think this movie was good, but I think it's the beginning of the end. I don't think there's going to be a Marvel movie as good as this one.
Yeah.
Again. And I think that's kind of warranted with Ultron's fall. Like, he's the last shining light of good, and then he's destroyed.
Yeah.
He's brung down.
Well, I guess I won't say what happens to Ultron. I mean, you can probably guess. I don't think it's really spoilers to say that Ultron in this movie doesn't win. He doesn't destroy the world. I don't think that's a spoiler. I won't, we won't say how that happens.
We already know that there's going to be, 2 more Avengers movies? And
the Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, which, by the way, nothing excites me less than Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2.
Why do they already know that they need to split into 2 parts? Why? How do they know?
Money, man. It's all about the money.
That's the thing. This is why Kevin Feige is terrible. They already split into 2 parts. It's not like, oh, we started making the movie. Oh, we have too much stuff. We need to split it into another movie.
Right.
No, it's like, we're going to make 2 movies out of this. We're going to squeeze 2. We're going to have 1 long storyline, and we're going to squeeze it into 2
It's also strange because it's not based on anything.
No,
this Infinity War thing,
it's
not
created.
Part 1 and Part 2. They made it Part 1 and Part 2, I think, just to fit in with the trend of all of the movies doing that now. Like, every young adult series does it. Like, other movies are doing it. I think they just did it for that reason, because you could easily make Avengers 3 and 4, just call it Avengers whatever the third one is, and then Avengers whatever the fourth one is. But they've built up since a long time ago, since the first Avengers movie, this ultimate endgame of Thanos destroying everything. And I don't give a shit. Thanos looks boring. He looks dumb. He's a big purple stupid fuck, and I don't care about anything relating to him. I don't care about his stones. I don't care about his Infinity Stones. Guys, listen to what you're caring about. They're stones. They're called Infinity Stones.
I thought, why does Thanos need these? I thought he was already like a god.
The Infinity Gauntlet is just basically the thing he has so that he can be like, I can destroy whatever I want now.
Ultron's so much cooler than that could ever be.
What's great about Ultron, and they kind of played this into with the Scarlet Witch character that's introduced in this, is how they manipulate the Avengers and kind of take them off of their path that they're supposed to be on. It kind of skews things. All of the Marvel-y, or Joss Whedon-y at least, kind of Avengers back and forth and the quippy stuff, it's all in here, but there is a point in this movie when they're kind of tested in a way that doesn't feel just like, a generic way that the heroes are tested. It feels interesting, and especially in the context of what these movies usually do, it feels, I talk a lot about the fact that these movies would benefit so much, and I think a lot of people share this opinion, that these movies would benefit a lot if they made their stories a little bit smaller and a little bit tighter. Like, it seems like they're
too... There's also, like, this movie, it just had so many characters, and it was trying to develop them all with a storyline all at the same time, and sometimes it felt a little too much, because there wasn't enough delving into it. It was just kind of lightly going over it.
You have so much going on here. Enough. You have the development of all these specific characters, and then you also have the development of new characters that we're just getting introduced to. You also have all of these crazy action sequences happening, like, all the time. And honestly, it is kind of amazing how good this movie ended up being.
How good it is for how much of a mess of crap there is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I'm just thinking about me being in the position of getting all of the stuff I have to deal with, and then...
It was just timed perfectly, because, like, the timing was perfect, because just the moment they would introduce a character and do a little backstory, and then they would just, like, forget about it and go on another backstory, and just as remembering, like, wait a second, did they kind of forget about that? They would just in time, like, elaborate more on that.
And I think it was
a fine line.
People are talking a lot about Hawkeye in this movie, about the different characters. Hawkeye's development that happens for that character is really good, and provides for some of the best moments in this movie.
And he was actually one character they actually had solid development in this movie, and the reason I think is because he hasn't really had much development in many of the other movies. He's kind of been a side character, and they kind of decided to make him kind of... Because they gave him kind of a purpose as, hey, he's the guy that they don't really need, but they actually need him because he's normal.
Yeah. I think... He actually gets the best line in the movie, too, which is really interesting. He has the best line in the entire movie. Out of all of the Avengers, Ultron has some pretty great lines. Ultron, in general, is just a really interesting, funny character. It's just a great
character. He's just... His whole attitude is just...
He's definitely very scary. He's a very menacing villain. But he's also very funny in a way that's not... in the normal, like, quippy Marvel way. He doesn't... Occasionally, they'll have a line that's kind of a quip where you're kind of like, that's a little... It's, like, a little much. But for the most part, the entirety of his character, like, what it's based on, is he's just kind of... He's wants annoyed. To take over the world, and he's just bothered by the fact that they're trying to stop him.
He's just kind of like, come on, guys, stop it. Just let me blow up the... He's basically just, stop! Yeah. Stop! Get out of my way! Yeah. You're bothering me!
And... Ultron is also a very cool character because, like a lot of great movie villains, you can empathize with him and you understand where that character is coming from. Like, the mentality of that character is not insane.
He's not insane. He's not evil.
No.
He's not evil.
He's misguided.
He's misguided.
And the character that's introduced later in this movie understands that more so than the other Avengers really understand. And I felt like that was almost a disservice to the movie at times, because you had all these characters looking at him in a way that he was just pure evil.
Sometimes I felt, because I agreed with, I thought that he was making a point valid, and I felt a lot of the character, they made the heroes jump too quick to, he's just evil. We need to destroy him.
Yeah. The beginning of this movie is really brutal. There are parts of this movie, even, like, the first scene is terrible. It's just the epitome of, like, the forcing fanboys to orgasm by showing a bunch of stupid shit.
If you liked Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, like, all its, like, ending scenes and explosions and stuff like that.
You're gonna love the beginning of this movie.
You'll love the beginning of this movie.
So, honestly, most of you out there will probably love the beginning
of this movie. It's just... I hated it because it was just in my face. Orgasm. Eat my shit and orgasm because I'm shitting in your mouth. And you fucking love it.
Not only does Kevin Feige have to shit in our mouths, but he has to make us orgasm.
He has to make a fetish out of it. He has to make us fetishize his shit.
Fetishistic fuck.
Kevin Feige is just, his whole goal is just to become a god. He just wants us all to eat.
Yeah.
Just... Fuck him.
So anyway, I think we've pretty much said all we're able to say at this point without talking more specifically about the things in this movie. I would say overall, this is a messy movie.
It's a good movie, though.
It's good.
You should watch it.
You should go to the theater. It's fun to watch.
If you're interested in this, even if you have like, you've already had reservations, this honestly has some of the best scenes in the entire Marvel universe that
For sure.
You need to see.
The action in it is not necessarily, like, the action specifically, the way it's filmed is not so great. There are points when it's honestly kind of abysmal.
Yeah.
But the character behind it, like, all of the tension behind it, it's all there in this movie in ways that it hasn't been in a long time in this superhero world. So I'm very excited that
honestly,
they were able to pull that off.
The action in it didn't... It had more to it than explosions.
Yeah.
Which I feel like most of the Marvel movies recently it's jumped to explosions. This has some more detailed action to it, but it's still... It's
detailed plot-oriented action, which is interesting. I feel like, a lot of the time what these movies resort to is a bunch of shit just starts happening, and then... that's all it is. And this movie has more to it. There are things that are happening in the movie that,
the action still can be a brutal slog at times, but it's I would say better.
Yeah, it's definitely shakier than the action was in the first one. There's a lot more shaky cam and like people flying into buildings and like, rubble flying.
There are plot moments of action that are cool, but what's hard is just like all these movies is it drags on a little long.
Yeah.
They just keep it going.
And
when it can stop.
Yeah, and even when there are some really like big moments that are like cool and it's like, oh, this thing is happening and I'm trying to talk about it without spoiling anything, but it also, you have this feeling in your head, this feels like the end of the last movie because some giant flying thing showed up. And you have like the context of these other movies that kind of ruin to a certain extent. It didn't ruin this movie entirely at all for me, but the moments are just tainted a little bit.
Yeah, dolls. It's a dog. It's a cute
a little
dog.
fleck of shit.
It's a flex of shit.
Yeah.
In the fur of a cute little dog. You love the little dog, but it has shit on it. Yeah. And that's not good. You want to clean it out.
Right. So.
Because I don't think anyone likes shit.
So. To summarize, this movie, cute dog, flex of shit. Go see it.
I think what we get out of this is, I think, in actuality, most humans like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, They
like the shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's fine. But if liking
shit is what you want, that's fine. I'm not judging. Just admit that you like to eat Kevin Feige's shit and come all over yourself.
Right.
Because Kevin Feige told you to.
Right.
You cunt. But, I'm not judging.
Now, all of you who haven't seen this movie, get the hell out of here, because...
You should see it. Don't be spoiled. Don't be spoiled. It has amazing
Don't be the
moments.
guy who listens to this and hasn't seen the movie.
It has good... It's a good movie. Watch it, okay? Yeah. Watch the movie.
Right. So... let's talk about a little bit more of the opening scene and just like how it sets this movie up. Because basically, this movie just starts.
It just starts in the middle of an action scene that would be at like the end of.
Which is not unheard of. I mean, it's a thing that happens in action movies sometimes, where the opening to the movie is another action scene, and it's like, oh, hey, look, all these characters are doing their thing. With this movie, it just felt a little strange because I feel like a lot of the Avengers. Certainly the novelty is worn off a little bit, but it would still be cool to get a little bit of time to build up to the Avengers again, instead of just having the movie start.
Some of the pre-exposition.
Yeah, instead of just having the movie start and having Hulk running around and smashing people and throwing people, and
Also, there was no they didn't even talk for the first couple minutes. It was just showing them.
Yeah, smashing
things. There wasn't even any quips.
No.
And you want to know what? I never thought I would say this, but even without their shitty quips that Kevin Feige has, with that shitty quips makes it a little more bearable.
Yeah. Especially when it's actually Joss Whedon doing the shitty quips. Yeah. Because Joss Whedon, for the most part, doesn't make them shitty. They become shitty inherently to a certain extent.
Because of how he makes them better. They are. Right, but he makes some original ones that are good.
Like the Hawkeye line in this movie, when he is talking to that girl... It's just like some random girl that he rescues, right? Yeah, he just rescues some random girl and he's talking to her and he's like, "This city is flying and I have a bow and arrow."
No. He's talking to Scarlet Witch.
Talking to Scarlet Witch.
This is at the very end of the movie, by the way. This is the
he's
final
talking to
big
Scarlet
battle
Witch
scene.
And, trying to give her that boost of motivation and make her feel like a true Avenger and make her feel like she can actually be one with all these other guys. And his like words of encouragement to her is like, "Hey, this is all fucking crazy."
His line, this is still paraphrasing, but it's like, "We're on a floating island fighting a bunch of robots, and I have a bow and arrow." None of this makes sense. This is weird.
Which I feel like is great because when the best Joss Whedon quips come out is when he's in a situation where he's writing a movie and he gets to a point where there's so much happening and he takes that step back to be like, all right, here is what's actually happening here in terms of like the audience. Here's what you need to realize.
He kind of breaks the fourth wall a little bit, but he's kind of telling the audience, look, you're looking at something that's like kind of weird and not...
Yeah,
none
of this is real. None of this has any. None of this has any. And
it's good for the Hawkeye character because they kind of develop in this movie again. They develop him more as people. They kind of.
He's almost us to a certain extent. He's like the outsider of the Avengers.
He's the outsider. But what I like in this movie, actually, what Joss Whedon does is. They create what people have kind of made. People have made a joke out of Hawkeye. It's like, oh, he doesn't really matter, and they actually make that mean something in this movie. They take the joke that people have made, and they're like, he's not actually needed in the Avengers, but actually because he's not really needed, he's a normal guy. He's needed because everyone else is this fucked up, super powered person.
That's a great writing moment because it's taking a disadvantage that everyone kind of thinks about. It's like, oh, Hawkeye is just like a guy with a bow and arrow. But in this movie, they develop him to the point with like his family.
He has a family. He has kids. He's like a loving father. He's just this guy who likes to.
He's a normal guy.
He's a normal guy,
and that makes perfect sense because. That's what everyone's saying when they're watching the Avengers and they see Hawkeye do all his shit. They're like, that just seems like a guy who shoots bow and arrows. And this movie's like, yeah, he's a guy who shoots bow and arrows. And because of that, and because of his character and like his value as like a person and the way that he interacts with the other people, he is a valuable part of that team.
Basically, in this movie, he's like the guy that like picks people up. He's kind of like he's like, okay, I'm trying to help all these dysfunctional people out.
Yeah. And that's perfect. It's honestly. Good. It's perfect for what that character really needed good. To be.
And it's what he needed, and it was also good just for this movie in general.
Yeah. I think if you didn't have that with Hawkeye, I think if you continued to keep him as what he was in the first movie and just not have him be mind controlled, I think people would still have that feeling of like, Hawkeye is just here again. And, for the longest time, people were thinking they were going to kill off Hawkeye in this movie, which I honestly thought Marvel was ballsy enough to do because Hawkeye wasn't a really essential part of the Avengers. Turns out they're not even ballsy enough to do that.
No.
They're not even ballsy enough to kill off the more interesting one of the new characters that's introduced in this movie.
They just killed off a boring character that they introduced just in this movie that doesn't matter because he was just within this movie.
Oh God! And
it didn't matter that he died.
That line that Quicksilver was saying throughout this movie as like the joke, that was one of the quips that just flat out sucked. When every time he would be like, "You didn't see that coming," and then like the other person would be like, "You didn't see that coming," and it was like a running joke. And then that was the last thing he said before he died, and I was like, "Oh, that's so disgusting."
I mean, it was fine, but when his sister was kind of like, I just felt him die. I felt like that was kind of like, okay.
Yeah. And
I also see some of the things in this movie. Like I felt like their whole sob story. Like, oh, our parents died
because of Tony Stark's.
Tony Stark's missile. We saw Stark.
That was so dumb. It's like
that was dumb.
Yeah, that made me feel like, okay, these people are dumb. They don't understand that just because.
And well, also it didn't feel. It's like no kid's gonna like. No one's gonna come out with that necessarily. No one's gonna like focus on that. Like
and also, if that's their story, that's not enough for them to like join forces with Ultron,
who
wants to like kill all of them.
And also, see, that's another like.
And they don't have anything against the other Avengers either. They're just like kill the Avengers because Tony Stark's name was on a missile that came near us.
And because they have like Russian sounding accents,
which are really not good.
Which makes them bad people. They are bad guys because they have Russian accents. And then also it's kind of weird because Ultron like. It almost makes it like Ultron admires them, but there's really nothing about they're just bland characters. There's nothing about them that would make Ultron like them.
Yeah, that's the thing. But that's that's a credit though. That's a credit to the writing of Ultron that like I'm thinking in my mind like why does this character appreciate these two? Like it seems like he is beyond them. Like it seems odd that he cared at all about. And that scene at the end where she like pulls his robot heart out and he's like talking to her as though they have some type of relationship. It was just strange. Like
it didn't really make sense to me.
I just think those two characters.
But that's not necessarily on Ultron more, but on the two characters because they had to have some way to put them in the movie.
I will say some like funny thing that I would see Marvel doing that I would be okay with because I love Elizabeth Olsen, the actress. Her in this movie is like kind of whatever, but I think she has potential. I think honestly in the future Marvel movies, she's definitely hot. But I think in the future Marvel movies, what they need to do is she just needs to be like taking classes to have like a good American accent so that she doesn't have to use this stupid accent anymore because that's going to completely fuck up any chance she has at being that cool of a character because it's always going to be like, oh, she talks like that. That's fucking stupid.
Well, the thing is, what was weird about that movie, the accent, it kept seeming like it kept being there and then gone. Yeah. She wasn't good at the accent, because sometimes it was there and it was really thick and gross, and then all of a sudden it didn't even seem like there was an accent.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that, and just the way it came across, was in part due to the audio mix of the movie, which was kind of off sometimes. Like, the score at points would just be, like, way too, like, in your face, in, like, a scene that really didn't need it. But there were other times when it was great, especially in the scenes in this movie where things were getting a little, like, darker and weirder. I thought that all was really cool. Like, all of the stuff where they were all having the visions were really interesting.
There were some pretty trippy moments in this movie that were good.
Yeah, like when they're all having
ideas.
When they're all having those visions, and like Black Widow's one where she sees like the kids with their mouths.
Yeah, that was kind of
without mouths. I was like, that's really out there for these movies.
They made her backstory. I think they made her backstory suitably. Well, at least in the flashbacks, they made it suitably like kind of creepy and disturbing and like dark.
Because they didn't explain it too much. Her story was basically laid out as they turned me into this assassin, and she has all these implications about what that meant and these things she had to go through.
What I did think when they have the reveal where she's sterile, I thought that was kind of forced though. That scene where she's like, "I can't have kids. They made me sterile so that I wouldn't get overcome," and like, okay, you're sterile, you can just like, I would be fine when she just said, yeah, I can't have kids.
I will say there was an interesting acting moment there, because I don't actually even know if you know this, but she got pregnant during the filming of this movie. So that was an interesting little moment, because I think that scene might have been filmed after that happened, and there was an interesting moment of acting from her where, even though story-wise that was kind of weird that they put that in there and I didn't really feel it, on her acting part, I felt like her saying that and the way that she delivered that line, there was something interesting about like her saying that and then like thinking about her life situation and seeing like the emotion she brought to that scene was interesting. Yeah, I felt like it was a good acting moment.
There was definitely emotion in there.
That was another scene when she revealed that where the score was way too prominent and kind of like, if that scene wouldn't have had a bunch of music in it,
I felt like they put like way too much emphasis on it being like, it's like
so dramatic.
I mean, that's something like you could just like throw that in.
Think about how much more of an effect that scene would have had. I'm very interested to see that now, actually. Like that scene where she's talking to Mark Ruffalo, and instead of it being like this big Hollywood scene, it's just like it would be in a movie that wasn't like that, where it's just like there's no music and it's just them talking.
If they just made it kind of like a still talking scene where she's just kind of like, I can't have kids.
And then that would have been so much better.
And just showing her being sad about it,
yeah,
and kind of conveying that, not necessarily having like kind of like forced like kind of dialogue about it, and this movie, and making it like a big reveal that's important.
The movie definitely takes things too far.
Well, the thing is, it's not that important of a reveal because you already know, like, oh, Scarlet Widow, you don't expect her to have a kid in a movie. You know what I mean? You're not expecting her to have kids. It's not like a big reveal that anyone cares about all that much.
No, it's just there to serve as dramatic tension for that relationship, which...
Some of that... See,
some of it was interesting, some of it wasn't.
Some of it I was interested in, and some of it was kind of... I mean, because honestly, that movie started when you see the relationship when she calms down the Hulk in the beginning, and you're kind of like, huh? What?
Yeah.
You're kind of like... That's kind of a interesting...
Yeah, no, honestly, especially after that stupid fucking action sequence that opened the movie.
Yeah.
When that happened, I was like, I like that. Keep doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the movie did keep doing stuff like that. They continued to do more interesting things throughout the movie. It's just that sometimes it was just not that interesting. And I swear to God, I thought at the end of the movie, it was going to end the same fucking way Captain America 2 did. Or, like, they'd be like, we're going to go find the Hulk. And I would have been like, fuck. Like, if they just would have done the same thing.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm glad they didn't do it. I'm glad... Because, I mean, it's kind of in character for him to just kind of go off. Because, I mean, Mark Ruffalo, the whole character is just kind of... He's just constantly in conflict with himself and constantly searching.
Yeah, I think they handled it well.
He's basically a constantly depressed person.
Yeah, I think him going off is fine. And I like the fact that they didn't try... to make that big of a thing at the end. It was a thing that happened, and she kind of recognized. She was very sad and torn up by it.
Well, it made her sad because she let herself. She kind of opened herself up to him, and he kind of was like, "I'm still not ready."
Yeah,
and that's kind of hard for her because
it was hard, but she still realized where that was coming from, and I think that was just like a very well handled dramatic moment where it was like. There were a lot of things happening. It wasn't just a surface dramatic thing. There was multiple layers happening.
I'm glad the Hulk had his like Hulk moments in this movie. They were good, but I'm glad there was a lot less of them than in the first Avengers.
Yeah,
because they were good in the first Avengers, but they became so much of like a thing that everyone loved.
That if they would have just done that again,
it would have been.
Yeah.
They kind of brought. I like that they pushed more on his human character.
Yeah.
Bruce Banner.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a lot of conscious effort made here to subvert expectations of things, which is really cool. I always like seeing that in movies, but yeah, certainly the stuff with the Hulk was more interesting than it would have been if they just would have gone for the same thing they did in the first movie. They did play with it a little bit, like there were Hulk moments, but it was usually involving another character. Iron Man Hulk thing when he just like punching him in the face. It was kind of a play on the thing in the first movie when he like takes Loki and he's like smashing him. Yeah. And then the joke in this one was that it was just Iron Man's fist like rapidly
punching him over and over.
And that was funny.
That worked. I also like when at the end when the Hulk like bites off one of the Ultron robots' head, and he's just like,
and he's like, oh,
yeah. Oh, and also a great line from Ultron where Ultron's flying in the ship and he's shooting everyone down. He's like shooting people, and the Hulk just jumps into it. And he's like, wait.
He's like, for God's sake.
Oh yeah. Ultron's like, that's the thing. Ultron is just like, he's like, for God's sake, why do you have to keep messing with me? He's just.
He just wants to do what he was going to do.
He's not, like, really mad. He's just, like, annoyed.
He was very fun. Like, James Spader did a great job with that voice. And, like, it was a very good villain. And I stole an Ultron shirt from Target today, and now I'm happy that I have it.
Yeah. I would get an Ultron. He's just a cool character. And also, I think his opening scene in this movie was such a creepy, kind of haunting opening scene.
Oh yeah, that was very.
I thought that was I thought that was an amazing scene.
When he's like waking up in the.
Even though they made him a little more comical later, which he was really funny. The beginning there was none of that. He was just kind of this.
It was really
creepy, sinister character, and they made him the kind of broken robot. It was it was cool. I really enjoyed that
and
scene.
there was a
introduction.
great build up to that scene
Yes.
too. That whole party scene, which might be my favorite scene in any Marvel movie so far.
That entire party, because it was just kind of cool. Because it was like, what are because again, a lot of this movie, what I liked about this movie was the human aspect. Because it kind of did focus on, well, these are superheroes. What are they actually like as what
do they do?
What's a superhero like as a human? What does a superhero do at a party?
Yeah.
You don't really think about that.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows these characters as kind of these dysfunctional humans at core.
Yeah. And also, like, their whole dynamic at that party and seeing characters from previous movies is nice when it's in this kind of context.
Yes, that kind of context.
I don't like it when they show up in an action scene and they're like, I'm here to save the day.
Yeah.
But when it's in this one, they're all just talking to each other.
Because it's like, well, of course, they're all just kind of like friends. Of course they're like superheroes. Of course they'd be like...
And it's a great vehicle for that snappy Joss Whedon dialogue when they're all around. That scene where they're all trying to pick up the hammer.
That's a great
And that
scene.
was one of the few, like, running jokes in this movie that I thought was great.
Yes.
Like, when they, at the end of the movie, when they're all, like, going their separate ways and they're just having the discussion about the hammer again, like, that worked. Like, I thought that was funny.
That scene with the where they talk about the elevator. Well, an elevator, if a hammer's in an elevator, it will bring it up.
Yeah.
It'll pick it up.
That was great. Yeah, that was definitely, like, there were a few running jokes in the movie that irritated me.
Another one of the running jokes that did irritate me was the Captain America language joke.
Oh, yeah. Because to me, that was a very obvious, like, self-aware joke, like, we can't have a lot of profanity in these movies. And it was almost like drawing attention to that in a weird way. And the joke about, it's like, we get it. Captain America is a goody two-shoes guy.
He's just white.
We already know that. We have a million other jokes in these movies about that aspect of his character. Yeah. That one just felt really superfluous, and it was almost like, hey, it's an Avengers movie. How do we start a scene with Captain America? Make a joke about how he's just a good boy,
conservative guy.
Yeah. So yeah, that definitely wasn't one that worked too well.
No. Because they even mention it in the movie. They're like, "Oh, is this gonna become a new thing that they're gonna joke about me?"
And I was like, "Please don't make it a new thing that they joke about."
They did. They did.
I knew they were gonna do it, and I was like, "Please don't do it," but they did. Tony Stark was fucking weird in this movie. Like his character was just very strange, almost because, like, I don't think Joss Whedon even really knew how to handle Iron Man, because Iron Man 3 was such a dramatic thing about such a dramatic film about Tony Stark that it was almost like after that movie and what happened in that movie.
Well,
this movie had a weird time.
Tony Stark has had, like, the most development out of any of the characters by far.
They still continue that element of him having the weird, like, freak-outs about him going through the wormhole in the first movie. That's still a thing that they factor into this movie, and he has that vision where all of the people are dead, and it's, like, inside that weird wormhole. Yeah. And that was actually a pretty creepy image.
That was a creepy
image. I think,
a
lot of the more, like, creepy images in this movie actually worked really well.
And the thing is, it's not like overly dark, like Captain America 2 or, like, stuff like that, where it's just like, ugh, dark.
Yeah, where it's just
we're making it gritty and dark.
Even though like 5 seconds later they do something fucking stupid.
This isn't just like overwhelmingly. It's not trying to make it dark. It's just kind of like, this is kind of uneasy. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Taking it back to what you said about the Ultron opening scene, when he's like waking up and they're going through the all the weird like computer world, that was really cool.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool idea how they portrayed that. I like how they portrayed like Jarvis and like
AI. And then like when he comes out and he's like, I killed the other guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool. Like his manner of speaking was so not what I'm used to from these movies. Like he was such a much more interesting kind of person and a real. As funny as that is to say, he sounded more like a real character.
And also, I really like how he's an AI, but because he's an AI, he's intelligent. He has artificial intelligence. He has flaws. Yeah. He's not completely robotic. There's a scene where he says, just because he is an artificial intelligence and he was created partly by Tony Stark. Yeah. He says something to like the one arms dealer guy that Tony Stark says, just because that's like in his brain.
Yeah,
and
it's
the
so
guy's
interesting.
Like, oh, you're created by Tony Stark, and he just flips out. And
but his arm
but the thing is, it's not even. It's almost like it's a not serious. He's not like, oh, he's like, don't compare me to Tony Stark, and then he's just not really thinking about things because he's just like this new young AI thing, and he cuts off the guy's arm. And he's like, oh, sorry, I don't really know how to work this out. The guy's like, ah,
yeah,
and just how nonchalantly he deals with it.
So I guess that character, Andy Serkis's character, I guess he must be a more prominent figure in like the later movies because Disney loves Andy Serkis, and I guess they brought him onto this to be. I guess that character is a significant threat. His name's Claw. I don't know anything about the character, but apparently he's like a big part of the next thing with Thanos. Which I don't give a fuck about this. I'm so much more interested in what this movie did and like the relationships and the stuff between the characters.
I don't care about the stuff that this movie set up for other movies.
Yeah,
that's.
I don't think Joss Whedon really did either.
No, that's the thing about this movie. The weakest parts of this movie is the things that it relies on other movies or setting up for other movies for.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we've talked a lot about Joss Whedon and how he really was beaten down by this movie, and he
talked about and he said it publicly, and he's admitting it. Joss Whedon has balls.
Yeah.
If Joss Whedon,
Marvel is almost like Scientology in a way, where I feel like I'm definitely scared for his well-being now that he's come out against a lot of the Marvel stuff. But I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Feige is like Suge Knight. If some people with bats come to Joss Whedon's house and they say they're gonna kill him unless he directs another movie and rescinds everything.
Or they just shit in his mouth.
Or they literally shit in his mouth.
That's how Marvel gets back at the people that talk against it. They just show up and shit in their mouths.
Kevin Feige does it personally.
Yeah, he's like, that's when it's really serious. Like, if you do something minor, just like some of his minions show up at the door, and they're like, what we're gonna fucking do, and they just push them down, and they
but it's Joss Whedon.
Very lightly shit on them. But then, like, when it's Joss Whedon doing it, Kevin Feige shows them, he's like, I'm gonna fucking shit on
Kevin Feige is a fucking indignant little cunt, because think about how much he owes to fucking Joss Whedon.
Yeah. Like, this entire
everything
universe,
is like, well,
after Avengers, everything after Avengers is in much part
Iron Man was
by.
was kind of a starting development and
Yeah.
developing a tone.
Yeah.
But Avengers is where everything just like started. Like, it really.
Another thing I wanted to mention,
and the reason why that movie is so great is Joss Whedon.
Another thing that I wanted to mention about this movie was the visual element of it, because one of the things I always said about the first Avengers movie was that it almost felt like it looked like a TV show. And I loved the first Avengers movie, but some of it looked like a TV show. Like, the way it was filmed looked a little cheap. This movie, what they've done, it's like they've used the cinematographer, I think. Maybe they actually did. It just feels like it to me, but maybe they actually did. Like, they used the cinematographer from Captain America 2 or Guardians of the Galaxy or something. Yeah. And because I think they go for such a consistent look in these movies now. And it was just forced onto this movie. And some of it, when it was shot in a more, like, basic way, it looked really nice because it was just kind of like the colors and stuff like that. But when it came to the action, it was like Joss Whedon's style of directing kind of feuding with the Marvel
Joss Whedon
style.
Does have so much of kind of like a TV influence on him.
Yeah.
Because he's made 2 TV shows, a show that originally was a web show, and then some movies. Joss Whedon's really done a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. So, I would say I liked this movie.
Yeah, I liked this movie.
I liked this movie. I think it definitely surprised me. I was expecting less from it.
It needs... Well, the biggest person that said this was we saw this with our friend Jonathan, who, surprisingly enough, has only seen the Iron Man movies and this movie. That's the only
Which
Marvel
would be
movies
so
you've seen.
strange.
It's so
I can't
strange. I
imagine
can't
it.
believe he watched that movie. I'm surprised he wanted to. But he watched the movie, and his main complaint that he said a lot of times was it was too long for him.
Yeah,
and
the action was just kind of nauseating.
And the action was The action was too much at times. It was just because the thing is, this movie. The thing is, for me, action scenes. Do a quick action scene and get it some cool. Just
have a good action moment.
Pack it with a lot of cool action.
Yeah,
and just do that. They just kind of keep it going though for a really long period of time, which they don't really need. You don't need constant action throughout.
Yeah,
this movie we were talking about. This movie could do with a good edit and just kind of take out a lot of Kevin Feige stuff.
Honestly, Joss Whedon said in an interview I just watched, the original cut of this movie was like 3 hours and 20-something minutes. Like, when he got it down to, like, where he thought it needed to be. And honestly, I think a lot of that is probably stuff that he really wanted in the movie that may have conflicted with
Kevin Feige.
With the Kevin Feige stuff, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff that was needed to be in this. But honestly, there was a lot less than there could have been, and I was impressed with that. Yeah. There was no setup for Civil War, which I'm almost really surprised that there wasn't any, because these two characters, Captain America and Iron Man, the next time we see them, they're going to be like enemies.
Well,
and how is that going to happen?
I mean, they kind of set it up a little bit with the new evolved human Jarvis character, and they eventually all agreed that he was good, but in the beginning they were fighting over whether to do it or not. Yeah. But the thing is, and it's kind of weird, they make it seem like Captain America's on the right side, but then it ends up most people joining Tony's side, and then he ends up being right.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'm definitely interested in where
also that evolved human character, him being created, I thought was really interesting. I thought it was an interesting concept,
and he was a good story device.
He was a good story device.
Him as a character in the future of these movies
is going to be weird. Yeah. We don't understand where he's going to go, because he's supposed to be like stronger than Thor. Because he has an Infinity Stone, and you see in Guardians of the Galaxy...
fucking stupid Infinity Stone!
You see in Guardians of the Galaxy, the Infinity Stone's supposed to, like, destroy worlds, so easily.
I'm so dumb. That's the reason why, though. The reason why this movie was better than a lot of them...
I'm just... Honestly, one thing I'm also really glad for is I thought they were going to show the Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie. I'm so glad they didn't. I thought they were going to show, like, Thor or something with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm really glad they didn't.
The thing that was good is this movie, it had MacGuffins from the previous movies, like that's the Spectre thing, not the Spectre thing, that giant spear thing. They had that in it, but this movie didn't have a main one. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy had the main plot point was literally a thing, like a box that they were all trying to get. This movie's conflict was all actual conflict, and even the stuff that didn't work.
Also, this movie had actually a lot of different conflicts going on. Like, Ultron was kind of a bad guy, but there was a lot of different stuff going on. Yeah, that was good. While they were honestly, the movie kind of goes over almost kind of like a period of time. Yeah. It's not just constantly fighting against him. There's kind of he's setting up things, and they're trying to set up things. There's almost kind of like a Cold War between them at points.
Yeah. Honestly, the post-credit scene of this movie sucks so bad but I love that it sucks because I almost feel like Joss Whedon wanted it to suck because it's nothing. It's literally 3 seconds of basically the ending of the first movie. It's just Thanos showing up for a second and being like,
"Here's a gauntlet."
And then there was the guy in the theater that said, "Oh shit," and I don't know if he was being serious or joking.
I think he was being serious. I think everyone in that movie was being serious.
Yeah. Either way, it's funny.
See, the thing is, we laughed at scenes no one else laughed at, and everyone else laughed at scenes we weren't laughing at.
Yeah. Like, all of the little... I feel like there were a lot of Ultron moments that, like, didn't go over as big in the crowd that I really loved, more so than a lot of the parts in this movie.
Ultron was just... He's my favorite supervillain. Like... Yeah. As of right now, he's my favorite supervillain.
They didn't technically show him get destroyed. Honestly, my dream, as shitty as it would be for them to once again not kill a character, I would love it if they just were like, fuck it. They just canceled the Infinity War movies, and they just brought back Ultron, and they just had more weird Ultron stuff happen.
Yeah.
Because I, honestly, even though that would be them doing something again, I like Ultron.
Ultron, I think, is anything they can do with Ultron is better than anything they can do with Thanos.
Oh my god. What
Thanos,
is that movie going to be? He's going to be in that movie. He's going to be like a character in it. He's going to be like walking around going,
Thanos, I can destroy everything.
He's fucking purple.
But we all know that what I don't like about these movies building up to this level with like Thanos being like a destroyer and then being gods is that like we know they're gonna win.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in setting up Thanos as this like god destroyer?
That's why Ultron is so interesting because
Ultron, it's not set up like that at all.
No, the effects that he has on those characters and like their mental states is what's interesting, because that's something that we know can actually be changed.
He's not trying to beat them in a straight up fight.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh, I'm just gonna destroy. He's like, I'm gonna fuck with you guys.
He's not like, he does want to destroy the world, but it's in his own way.
It's his own way, and it's not, he even tries to improve. He knows that he can't like beat them on his own. He's trying to improve himself.
All Thanos is literally like, he just consumes. He's like, I'm gonna destroy it and take it. That's not interesting at all.
Thanos has like no point behind like his
honestly,
destruction.
I have no idea what they're gonna do. I have no idea what they're gonna do in those Infinity War movies, because there's nothing exciting. We've already seen them do such huge action sequences. The whole appeal of doing a Thanos would be like, it would be the craziest action they'd ever done. But they've already done such crazy stuff, they can't really top it anymore.
Their action has just become very bloated.
Yeah.
In this
because you can't really up it anymore, and that's why the story in this movie is so much more interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, that's also why this is kind of getting off topic, but it's still connected. Why the Daredevil TV show is really good. Yeah. It's not so crazy. It's kind of a realistic kind of action that's very entertaining.
And I understand, obviously it's the Avengers and all of this stuff is going to be way more out there than something like Daredevil is going to be. But at the same time, it's the moments...
They let it build up to... They could have slowed down the build up.
Yeah. We didn't need these movies to get this crazy this quick. Yeah. Especially if their end game is to like keep these movies going forever.
Yeah.
They've really burned themselves out.
Yeah, they've burnt...
because this movie is good.
I even think, even though people are eating this shit now, I think these movies are going to be done. Like, everyone's going to not care about them by the end of this, because I think people are it's going to be too much. They're going to start to get sick of them. But the thing is, Kevin Feige doesn't care about that, because all Kevin Feige wants is the money, and he's gonna finish his thing, and he's gonna get all the money he wants.
Yeah. And, like, we were talking about earlier, before we started this podcast, about what's happening over at DC, and how they are trying to take a page out of Marvel and setting up their whole universe. But right now, my advice to them, as if any of them were listening to this, but my advice to them would be to not escalate too quickly. Like, if you want your thing to have longevity, you need to pace it out.
From what I've seen so far, it does seem promising.
Yeah.
I really hope, they keep the Joker character as what some of the stuff that people have teased, and being kind of this crazy kind of tattooed, messed up character, even though it seems like they've already thrown that away.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with that.
Yeah.
But I like superhero movies. I think they have potential. And I just want to see something like what is happening with the Avengers done in a way that's less make it a little milder and take some more time. The Thanos thing that they're doing, they can't. What are they? They can't make any more Avengers movies after that.
No.
What would they do?
Yeah. It's...
What will they do? They would literally have to. They're gonna have to start everything over, or stop doing the Avengers movies, or just do more of.
No, then what they're gonna do is they're gonna do something like, now it's time for the new Avengers.
Yeah.
Because that's what they always did in comic books, where they just recreated the team. They're just gonna have it. They beat. And then they're just going to make a new team of young, different superheroes. Yeah,
but honestly...
And then they're going to have the older people still showing up, fucking shit up. And people, ah! Orgasm! There's Tony Stark! He is now really old, but he's still doing shit.
But honestly, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to last that long. I think by the point that they want to do that, I think it's going to be burned out. I think the only thing that's going to keep them going in the way that they want to... They have Spider-Man now. They're going to start doing stuff with Spider-Man.
So gross.
Technically, Sony still has Spider-Man, and he just shows up in Marvel Cinematic Universe movies as of right now. But I think that's kind of a ruse. I think, honestly, Marvel probably controls a large portion of it now.
Yeah.
And what I want to see happen with that is hopefully after they get all the stuff out of their system, after they do all the Infinity War movies, and I'm sad and I'm broken and I don't care and I'm just dead with it at that point. Hopefully then everyone else will be with me by that point. I hope that this Marvel thing, I don't want it to die. I'm not just pessimistically like...
Yeah, we're not...
I just want it to be better, and the way it's going, it's not very good.
I think people think that we're just hating.
I'm not. I want these movies to be good, and I like this one. They did good things here.
When we say we don't like Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America 2, I think people think we're just like hating to hate because people like it.
No,
we just think they're bad.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking these movies are bad.
They're bad. We're not haters. We're not hipsters. They're not good movies.
Yeah.
This movie was a good movie, though. See, we're proving you wrong. Avengers 2 is a good movie.
Everyone who was thinking that we were just going to say this was shit no matter what, fuck you. I liked this movie. It was good. I'm saying that so you can't give me shit. This was good. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. And even honestly, even the reviews were saying like it's Avengers but not as good. Yeah. I don't even think that's necessarily true. This movie's different.
It's very different. It's
and
definitely
I think
different.
I think it has the best scenes in this franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. The high points of this movie definitely exceed the high points of the Avengers, the first movie. It's just that the Avengers, the first movie, was a more consistent.
Well, it was also just it was original.
Yeah, it was
original,
and the novelty was still all there, and it was still like we're seeing the Avengers for the first time.
That's the thing. I loved the Avengers when it came out. I loved that movie. I have a difficult relationship with the Avengers now because
it kind of represents. It represents the start of what came.
And I've seen so much of it that it's kind of ruined that movie for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to hate on you fanboys, but you kind of ruined that movie for me, so you should know that you're all terrible people.
Not to hate on you or anything.
Not to hate on you or anything, but you're
bad.
Terrible people. Like Dustin Mason. He's a fucking shit person. And he liked The Wedding Ringer, which is the worst movie.
Other movies
time.
Dustin liked.
He liked Guardians of the Galaxy a lot. That was his favorite Marvel movie.
But too many people think that. It's to the point where it's beyond. Dustin, you suck for liking. Well, I was gonna say you suck for giving Palo Alto a 10, but I ended up liking that movie more.
Yeah, I like.
I wouldn't give it a 10, but I wouldn't. I'm not gonna call you dumb for that. Yeah. There are definitely things.
Wedding Ringer. Did he like Blended?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't believe so.
Okay, but still, you like The Wedding Ringer, which makes you a bad person, morally bad.
Right.
Avengers 2 is good.
Avengers 2 is good. Dustin Mason is bad.
Dustin Mason's bad. Dustin Mason's probably not gonna like this movie.
He did like it. But he didn't. I'm very interested to talk to Dustin about it. Just for everyone listening to this,
Dustin.
Dustin is actually a good friend of mine, and he's probably gonna come live where I am, and he's one of my best friends, and I've known him for years.
I don't really
but
know
I still
him.
fucking hate him.
I just give him shit for no reason. We're gonna hang out probably if he comes here.
Yeah. And then we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the sparks fly. Maybe Dustin will be in this exact situation with us, talking about the next Marvel movie that
Maybe
comes
me
out.
and Dustin will have gay sex.
Maybe.
We
don't know.
Plot twist.
We actually don't know.
We don't know.
We never actually know.
Didn't Dustin suck someone off?
Or that was a complicated story. I don't really remember the specifics.
Don't need to get into it. I'm attracted to peanut butter, but
everyone has their thing. And honestly, if your thing is eating Kevin Feige's shit,
I mean,
it's okay.
Just realize that
you're doing that.
Yeah.
You need to understand that you're doing it.
You don't even need to put it in the terms of eating Kevin Feige's shit, but if you like these Marvel movies,
honestly, what it is to me is don't hate on us for not loving it.
Yeah, just don't
love it yourself, but just don't
because people do hate on us.
Yeah. They think that we're hate, and we're not. I always go into these movies.
This movie was a good movie. This was a good movie.
Yeah.
I loved scenes in this movie.
Yeah,
Ultron.
I loved scenes in this movie.
I loved Ultron.
The experience of seeing good scenes in an Avengers movie. That was very nice, and I wasn't, honestly, with some of the reviews that were coming in, I wasn't expecting that to be the case. And that's really odd.
I don't think this movie deserves the Rotten Tomatoes score.
No, it's weird that this movie... Yeah, it's weird that a significant portion of people who really liked the Avengers didn't like this one. Because to me, it seems weird. First of all, I think people are realizing what Marvel is doing really late.
Yeah.
There are people commenting on Avengers Age of Ultron and saying, these movies don't have any stakes. They don't actually kill off characters. And I'm like, what? Did you not fucking see Captain America?
Yeah, Captain America gets a 90%, and this movie gets a 70-something.
In which they actually, Captain America 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy both set up sad death scenes and then resurrect a character.
Yeah.
At least they didn't do that with Quicksilver. I think, honestly, because Quicksilver also exists in the X-Men movies now, I think they're just I think they knew that before they started filming this movie. They're like, we're killing him, obviously,
Well, what I think is the reason we like this movie, why maybe some other people didn't, is they're just finally realizing that Marvel is shit.
Yeah.
And so they're taking out on this movie.
Yeah.
We've already known that Marvel's shit, and this movie isn't as shit. No. As the other movies.
No. And it has legitimately great scenes.
The puppy was just covered in shit.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to touch it.
Now it's like the puppy got a bath.
It's cleaned off. See, before,
not a good bath.
People just thought the dog before was a black lab.
Yeah.
That smelled weird. Mm-hmm. Now they're and now it's cleaned off a little bit, and they realize, wait,
there's other fur.
It's white fur, and it has shit on it.
Just dark shit too, shit that's just been there for a while. We haven't noticed it. It's just crusted onto the dog over time, and we're just realizing.
We've made some weird analogies tonight.
But I think they're all
Knight, Kevin Feige, Marvel. I think that's a good analogy.
I think honestly, the out of the analogies that we've come up with, the dog one is pretty apt. You can draw. There's a giant ass bug in this room. I just realized.
Where?
On this TV. Look behind. There's a giant fly.
What the?
There is a giant fucking fly. And I think that is the cue to end this podcast, because there's a giant fucking fly in here. Which, that's what it means. When you see that. In the future, when we record any podcast, we won't stop recording until a giant insect comes into the room, or just some type of animal comes in. That will be the signal.
Animal?
If a rodent comes in here, we'll end the podcast.
Has a rodent ever come into your room?
I don't want to talk about it.